news from the NFL. The Cowboys have a new head coach. How about this, Shay?
Yeah, there he is right there. Turns out, David Lloyd, they didn't have to look very far.
No, it's a mere promotion, simple promotion for Brian Schottenheimer. Let's get there. That's the story we're starting off with. That guy right there. Brian Schottenheimer is the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. His first head coaching job. He's been the offensive coordinator there for the last 2 seasons. This season, the offense was 16th in yards per game, albeit without Dak Prescott for much of the season. So he replaces Mike McCarthy as the Cowboys head coach. Let's take a look. Schottenheimer's first year in Dallas. Cowboys put up gaudy numbers on offense, ranked top 6 in touchdowns and yards per game. This season, well, it was a different story. The Cowboys offense scored the 3rd fewest touchdowns this season, while also averaging nearly 50 fewer yards a game. Senior NFL insider Adam Schefter joins us now. Adam, Brian Schottenheimer is a name that didn't generate a lot of buzz in league circles. In fact, he didn't even get an interview for any other head coaching vacancies. So take us through this decision and why Schottenheimer was picked over others the Cowboys looked at.
Look, this is somebody that I think, most important, Jerry Jones felt very comfortable with. When he called Friday night to deliver the news that he had just hired Brian Schottenheimer, and that Brian Schottenheimer, a career assistant, is no longer a career assistant. He's now the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones sounded awfully excited about this. Brian Schottenheimer is somebody that he knows, is comfortable with, believes in, knows the system, that his quarterback, the highest paid player in football, Dak Prescott, is comfortable with. And so there are any number of elements that appealed to Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys as they move forward in these talks. They met with Brian Schottenheimer on Wednesday, again on Thursday, throughout the day on Friday, and clearly everything that they heard during those discussions made them come to the realization and the decision that there was no need to prolong this search any longer, and it was time to give Brian Schottenheimer his very first NFL head coaching job.
Okay. Now, Dallas didn't decide on Mike McCarthy until a full week after the season, and maybe because of it, they didn't even get some of the more highly sought-after candidates into their building. Adam, was there some mismanagement here on the part of Dallas? What do you make of the situation and the guy they ultimately got and the guys that they didn't get?
It was unusual the way it played out, David, but it really didn't cost the Dallas Cowboys any candidates. It doesn't feel or seem as if they were in the market for Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn, so therefore that's irrelevant. The other coaches they didn't interview were not on their interview list, and they were focused in on the group of coaches that they spoke to. And from the moment they began meeting with Brian Schottenheimer on Wednesday, it became readily apparent that this was somebody that they were targeting to be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. There are other names. They met with Robert Saleh, the man who's now taken the defensive coordinator job for the San Francisco 49ers. They met with the former Vikings head coach Leslie Frazier. Jerry Jones himself spoke with Deion Sanders, but never actually interviewed him for the job. Not that he would have needed to interview Deion for the job. The idea of Jason Witten was kicked around. But all along, it seemed like they were focused in on Brian Schottenheimer. Kellen Moore, also an assistant coach with the Eagles, offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, was a name that they spoke to. But again, it really felt like this was going to be Brian Schottenheimer's job. And Friday night, Jerry Jones made that official.
And so now the Saints are the last NFL team which hasn't filled its head coaching vacancy. Adam Schefter with us with some late Friday night news that the Cowboys have hired Brian Schottenheimer as their new head coach.
The Cowboys will look to get back to their 2023 form with a fully healthy Dak Prescott, who had one of his best years of his career that season. They still have to solve that cap issue. They got to clear $3.6 million. They got to plug a few holes, obviously, from free agency, but Jerry's world does now have a new head coach. Let's welcome in our Cowboys reporter, Todd Archer. And Todd, the Cowboys interviewed 4 candidates officially for the head coaching vacancy. As someone like you who was around this team day in and day out, what was it about Brian Schottenheimer that made the Cowboys decide to stay in-house and promote their OC?
Yeah, you heard Adam Schefter at the start of the show talk about familiarity and comfortability with Jerry Jones and Brian Schottenheimer. There's also a familiarity and comfortability between Brian Schottenheimer and Dak Prescott. They've developed a close relationship over these last 2 years, and really 3 when Brian was here as a consultant in 2022, working mostly with the defense. But while he wasn't calling plays these last 2 years, every time when Dak came off the field, he was talking to Brian Schottenheimer, going over what they had just seen, going over how different ways they want to attack defenses. They've learned to see the game way, and Brian Schottenheimer is known as a run-first offensive coordinator when you look at his history, but I can point to Seattle, his 3-year run there with the Seahawks. Russell Wilson threw 106 touchdown passes, just 25 interceptions. So if they can get Dak Prescott back to playing at that level like he did in 2023 under Mike McCarthy, like he did in 2021 under Kellen Moore, then the Cowboys might be back in that playoff chase like they were the last 3 seasons before 2024.
Okay, one can only hope, because there are 2 teams right now still playing football that are in the NFC East as well. Having a strong supporting cast will be the next step now for Schotty, and I don't mean on the field, I mean in terms of his coaching staff. What are you hearing as far as offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator?
Let's start with the defensive coordinator, and indications are that Matt Eberflus, the former Chicago Bears head coach, will be high on the Cowboys' priority list, and talking to him about possibly returning to Dallas. He was an assistant under Jason Garrett for a number of years, working first with Rob Ryan and then Rod Marinelli on defense before moving on as an assistant and ultimately becoming Chicago's head coach. Maybe some coaches from his staff that he had with the Bears as well. And then the offensive side, that's where it gets a little bit interesting, because it's my understanding that Brian Schottenheimer will be the one calling the plays. So finding the right offensive coordinator for him, maybe someone with an offensive line tie to help that running game get back up to speed the way it was early under Jason Garrett's tenure, and finding some explosive plays in the passing game is a must. And there's also another part they have to replace, and that's the special teams. They lost their coordinator, John Fossil, earlier this week to Tennessee. So as much as Brian Schottenheimer is just getting used to this job, he's got a lot of spots to fill on his staff.
Yeah, time to get to work. A lot of hose to fill. So if Brian Schottenheimer does call the plays, as Todd Archer is saying probably is going to be the case, obviously that would carry over from Mike McCarthy, the head coach, calling the plays the last few years as well. Todd Archer, we appreciate it.
Chào tất cả các bạn đã quay trở lại với kênh YouTube của mình. Video ngày hôm nay mình lại làm những video tô mổ để gửi tặng tất cả các bạn đây. Đây là những đồ vật, con vật của mình chuẩn bị tô mổ để gửi tặng tất cả các bạn. Đấy. Những sản phẩm của mình rất chi là nhiều, đây. Và không thể thiếu được hộp xăm mổ của mình này các bạn ơi. Hộp xăm mổ giúp mình tạo ra những sản phẩm tuyệt đẹp. Và bây giờ các bạn cùng theo dõi mình tô mổ nha.
Mình sẽ tiếp tục tô mổ nhé các bạn. Mai sau mình có rất là mãi đâu.